5, 4, 3, 2, 1. I'm John Miglosh for the Wisconsin DMA and the International Society for Strategic Marketing. Well, TikTok, you may have heard, and I've reported, has been, let's do this one first. This will be more fun. We're going to just do a quickie Daredevil and how you can produce a great commercial with no budget. Wait, what happened to it? Let's try it again. I don't know where the sound's coming from. I hear it. Oh, I don't think you guys hear it. I'll mark it up there like that.
Little Caesar's just introduced Crazy Bread stuffed with melted cheese.
Don't do it! It's so crazy!
Crazy is the second half of my
life. They got 10 extras.
New stuffed Crazy Bread with
one
crazy
actress.
sauce. Oh, it's crazy.
And look at that.
Pizza.
They don't even have any video except for the guy sitting on a motorcycle in the middle of a football field. So, COVID-19 has been great for creative, and that was all I wanted to say there on that one. Okay, now, TikTok. Back to TikTok. Okay, so there's rumors that China has been blocking and censoring. Well, it's not just rumors. There are some facts behind it. So TikTok creators, in order to get in China's good graces, are pandering to the superpower with sarcasm. Which may or may not be picked up by the AI. It usually is not. And so that's I think that's sort of hilariously funny, to be honest with you. There is no evidence, no conclusive evidence that this is working. And I thought I'd share it with you anyway, as usual. Okay, this was a new one for me. A new treatment for ADHD. The first ever prescription video game lands a high score. And, it kind of makes sense because, you get pulled in to the video game. It takes your mind and absorbs it, and time passes without notice and things. And apparently they took some of those characteristics and made it deliberate. It's deliberate, and so it supposedly works. So if you have ADHD problems, I don't. Some people think I do, but it's only because my brain is in such high gear. And moving on, a modest approach to venture capital. The average VC company is chasing the 1%, which is really more like 1 in 1,000%, that their investment is going to be the next Uber, the next $1 billion public offering, initial public offering. And the chances of that are very slim, but the chances of those businesses going under, completely being worthless, are about 44%, which is pretty high. So this Indie.vc decided that they would, instead of giving $1 million to $10 million to a company that didn't have any proven track record, no sales, and didn't know what they were doing, they would give $100,000 to $1 million to a wider variety of companies, and their failure rate, mortality rate we'll call it, is 10% down here. 10% versus its mortality rate is 10% versus 44%. So that means 90% of their investments are still at least worth something. And time does tend to build value. If you can keep surviving for long enough, you might outsurvive your incompetent competitors and the ones who blew through all the money. That's my story. I was watching all of these consulting firms and marketing firms pop up like mushrooms in the 90s, and with 10 seconds worth of experience saying, the world has changed, everything is new. Boom, boom, boom. I remember going to this, I don't know what. It was about a 30-story building, and this company owned a couple of floors of it, and they were putting up like Greek statues, and they had this whole Greek theme. I forget. It had some Greek name. I forget, Pythagoras or something. And my friend Brett Bissell worked there, and he got this huge deal, and he was paid a fortune, but the company disappeared almost instantly. And so as experts disappear, you're left with me, and you're left with mail, direct mail, and we're going to talk about that next. Okay, so that's the story. That's the lead-in. So invest a little in a lot rather than a lot in a little, and you might have more diversity. Oh, that was the really interesting bottom line on the whole thing. The bottom line was this has led to a more diverse profile. Half the startups are run by women, 20% are black lead, which is above the national average. And this is the absolute opposite of the typical venture story with black lead companies. Black lead companies in general are only 1% of a portfolio versus 12.5% of the country. So this is an incredibly good pivot, I think. Now, in my case, I went to my bank and got 10 grand or something, which in those days, this was back before computers. No, it wasn't. That was a lot of money. It wasn't that much money, and it wasn't enough money, but I managed, and here I am today, and that proves something, like I said. So, on a final note, and this is a great story, so I wanted to take a little time on it. Don Shults passed away in April, apparently, and just a few days ago, okay, in June. And Don, I met with Don several times, because Bob Stone was interested in me teaching at Medill School of Journalism in the direct marketing program. Bob asked me to help with 2 chapters of his book, and I have those over there. But they already had a database course, but it used cruise lines. And one of the trouble with cruise lines, as is in high-ticket items in general for direct marketing, is that you don't get, you have your repeat buyers, but because it's a relatively high ticket, it's relatively inconvenient. It's not like going to the grocery store where you get really good buying patterns and you can test really fast. And so, as a data set, it wasn't very good. I had the Hudson Bay Company, I had Cabela's at the time, and we had 15 million customers with 250 million transactions. So I said, you guys you're playing with 10,000 records. We can do way better, but somebody was an associate professor and somebody was politically connected and all of that. But I admired Don, and Mark Ritson apparently admired him even more. And Don had the ability to span the world of advertising and academia in a manner that still evades most marketing professors and marketing practitioners. There isn't much overlap there, as far as I can tell. It's sad, but there's a lot of private authorship. I did teach in Bob Stone's course on direct marketing down at the University of Missouri, Kansas City, UMKC, and I wasn't paid much, but they let me take the course, and since I had never taken a marketing course, I thought it would be fun. And I did end up being the valedictorian, but also for the first 2 years, I was also the highest rated presenter out of all the professors and all the practitioners with the catalog game, which is another story entirely. So back in the 80s, in the real agencies, I was in a direct marketing agency, but in the real agencies, they would split between the brand advertising called above the line, and that was usually TV commercials and sort of image stuff, and the below the line, which was promotions and giveaways and banners for the stores and all that kind of thing, on-pack stuff. And so that kind of defined advertising. That was actually from the 50s and the way that Procter & Gamble paid their bills. And so I was kind of insulated from that. But the system began to fall apart in the 1990s, and Mark remarks, and I think this is true, that people today think that the advertising world, advertising marketing, is changing in unprecedented ways. To be honest, I don't think it's changed much at all. Nothing compared to the 90s. Nothing. Because suddenly, people with 10 seconds of experience, as I mentioned in the last article, suddenly people with 10 seconds of experience were the big experts. And, I stuck with direct mail. People said, why? Asked why, and I said, I think it's real. We really know things for sure. And so Don did a research project, and he found out that you could have multiple media, competing channels. Okay, he made his reputation In 1991, he worked with the American Association of Advertising Agencies, the 4As, in a research project to examine how companies and agencies were managing to blend the disparate and increasingly distinctive communication tools. The research became the basis for his book, Integrated Marketing Communications. Okay? And he basically argued that a multifaceted approach was the most powerful. And I would think it was probably true still today because, people, you can approach people at different levels, with different costs, with different engagement, in a wide variety of tools. None is the entire story. And he defined integrated marketing communications as the process of managing all sources of information about a product, service to which a customer or prospect is exposed, which behaviorally moves the customer toward a sale and maintains customer loyalty. Now, the big flaw in that, and I think why it's not adopted, Mark, is managing. Attribution is impossible. And it's not just impossible because we can't track cookies anymore. It's impossible because I don't know my own brain as a customer. The customer doesn't know their own brain, and you can't ask them why they bought that product in any meaningful sense, right? You've probably seen that hypnosis show where they put ad agencies in a car, ad guys, and they ask them to come up with a pitch for a pet funeral company. And along the way, they're shown, they don't know they're shown this, but they just look out the windows and they see, people with signs and different stuff along the way. And what they were able to do was get like 5 different ad agencies showing the basically identical pictures in the pitch that they supposedly came up with from scratch. So we are influenced, and none of them remembered any of that influence. Okay? Right? We are influenced in amazing ways. We are pattern recognition machines. And we don't realize that we're not seeing the truth. We're not seeing the big picture. We're seeing a pattern that was maybe fed to us. So the problem is, in attribution, is no matter how you track it, you don't know the answer. Which is why, instead of a balanced approach, this is why it's neglected, because you can't tell, or it's very difficult to tell. You can do target markets. You can do test cities. You can do holdout samples. But if you omit that Little Caesars ad, if you say, well, we're going to run it in some cities and not others, or we're going to run it in this channel and not that channel, there won't be any impact. That may not have sold one pizza, for all you know. But it may have helped people who buy Little Caesars feel like, well, it's a good company and it's fun, and I like having fun, and I like their pizza. A little bit in their brain. Who knows what happens? There's a certain amount of above-the-line budget that goes into that, and it seems to help share of mind. Lots of hearts today. Okay, so diversity of tactics and their subsequent integration by a well-changed objective marketer would always prove superior to pushing one tool out there as better than another. And see, I disagree with that fundamentally. There is one tool that's better. And what I would argue is that rather than just integrated, because that doesn't have a hierarchical approach, it doesn't say that one's better. It just says, and Mark basically says, well, it depends. But it's better, Mark agrees that it's better to spread your money around in different channels. But how does it all get organized? And I would argue that the best foundation for your marketing is mail, whether it's B2B or consumer. Because in mail, we can do field valid experimentations. We have a heuristic system. We have a system that gets smarter. It's not just managing the system, it's we can get smarter. Now, you can get smarter with Facebook and walled gardens a bit, and it works pretty well, but the level of engagement is so low, it's difficult to know what's going on. Now, you say, well, mail has disadvantages. Absolutely. I would not put all my budget into mail. It's slow, it's expensive, but you want to find something out for sure. You start with mail. And we're going to be doing a great recap of a couple of case studies next Tuesday. I already have the tickets on sale, free tickets, but you can register for the show noon on Tuesday. Go to wdma.org. See below, right here. See? Oops, you can't see. The little thing right down there. wdma.org, and you can register your ticket. And we don't spam ticket registration people, but we are nice to them. And I will explain this hierarchical approach that Don could have had me down there. I wanted to teach at Northwestern, but, the politics got in the way, which is also what happened at UMKC. And Mark, I'd love to have you come. I'd love to have you hear my explanation because, you're a deeper thinker than I am, and you're much more academic than I am, and I really appreciate your articles. So I hope you got something out of this. Like and share. Your friends will think you're smart. Have a great day. Bye-bye.